let's get started. This is now the iOS development course, and we're going to build a couple of apps today, obviously. The big goal is to build a calculator app, but before we do that, I'm going to build another one first. So what you want to do is download 4 files, and from the bhacker.com website, if you go into, let's go back to the beginning here. If you go into the iOS application development link, and you go into example projects in the course material subfolder. We're going to do practice with GUI controls tutorial, which is a PDF file. And then the one underneath it is the cheat sheet. It's the finished solution. And then on the bottom, building a calculator tutorial, and then the cheat sheet, or the cheat. So if you can't get it to work, I'm giving you the solutions for both of these two. But we're going to try and make it work, hopefully. But I always know that there's a few problems sometimes that occur. If you remember last week, we did the scroll view example. It's right here. And then the basic projects, we worked with some of the other items, like the web view. So last week was all about the views, the UI views and view controls. This week is all about action, getting the programming part to work with the GUI. So that's kind of like why I chose these 2 examples for tonight. I know that you'll be building a calculator for one of the programs that you're doing. Did you want more light? Or can we, we'll see, maybe we can get more light. Let's see. Oh my God, it's daylight. Wow. Who knew? You can still see the board. That's good. Wow. That adds a whole new perspective. It's incredible. All right, so last time we focused on the views and the different types of view controls, so tonight's all about getting the views to work with the controls and to work with the programming component of it. So there's a lot more Objective-C programming in tonight's lecture than you're probably used to, but that's there for a purpose because we have to make it functional somehow. All right, so download those 4, or at a minimum download the 2 that say tutorial on them. We're going to start in with the button control. So that's the one you're going to want to open up first. And it should look like this. It should say buttons.pdf on it. And for those of you who came in earlier, we had tonight was set your device up to work with Xcode night. So I've got like all of you except for one person left. If you came in a little bit late, you have a device you want to set up, catch me after the class. We'll set the devices up. You do have to have the device. You have to have the cable for the device, and you have to have a MacBook computer. That's not going to work. You can't do Xcode on a Toshiba. Yeah, you have to have a MacBook. All right, and then we'll set you up. You'll be round 2 of the batches. So, we're good? Or we have a issue right here? Or, no? Okay, very good. You sat next to the right person. Alright, so what we're going to do is open up a new Xcode project, so close down everything else you have. Also a little bit of information here, although we will be building a calculator tonight, you don't want to turn this calculator in for the program. You're going to make your own calculator, I hope, because I know what this calculator looks like if you're going to turn it in, so I already know what this one looks like. So let me see. Create a new Xcode project. And we're going to do, let me just make sure, we're doing the button example first, by the way. We're not doing the calculator first. We're doing the buttons for a couple reasons, and I'll make that apparent when we go through it. So this is going to be a single view application. We're going to use the automatic reference counting, and we're going to call this one buttons. And don't use the storyboard feature. So hopefully after we've done this for a couple weeks so far, so hopefully you're going to at least, some of this stuff's going to look familiar to you. Buttons. I'm going to make mine for the iPhone. You can make it for anything you want. You can use a universal, or actually probably just iPhone or iPad. I'm not going to use storyboard, I'm going to use automatic reference counting. And if you're interested, earlier today during the Objective-C course I went over automatic reference counting and garbage collection. You can listen to that video. You can see what you missed. So go ahead and save it. I'm going to put this one on the desktop. Oh, please tell me who you are. Your name. I've never seen this before. Fatal, undetected email. Interesting. Not quite sure. I think it's because I'm logged into the developer account. Oh, did I click that accidentally? Ah. Let me close this project actually real quick here because I don't want to add it to my, I have an account, but it's on a different computer. I don't want to mess that up. So let me just do this one more time. I'm going to call mine buttons too. Where did I click it? No, I didn't click it. Let me unhook my iPad too, actually. That shouldn't have come up. Oh, I did click it. Okay, that's good. You know why? Here's the other thing you probably want to be careful of. Every time you change settings, you click on something new, it stays there. So the last project that I created, actually, I was uploading it. Not such a good idea because then it doesn't go back to defaults. It just makes it the new default. So don't add it to a Git repository. Okay, good, very good. So now we're at the beginning here, and I always start with the GUI first. So I'm going to click on the viewcontroller.xib file, like you're going to do probably. And let's take a look at the instructions and see what we're going to do. So we have, we're on step 3. Actually, we're on step 4 because we've already done step 3. Opened up XIB. So step number 4, and I'm actually going to kind of go through a little bit faster with this today because I'm assuming some of these steps you've done over and over again for the last couple weeks, so hopefully we're starting to get into a pattern of how to build stuff. So this one here, we're going to change the background color for different colored buttons. We're doing this because I want to show you a little bit about Objective-C source code and how this is going to work. So we're going to drag 3 rectangular buttons from the library and we're going to place them onto the window. We're going to call the buttons green, yellow, and red. So there's our buttons. You can use any button you want. I'm going to use a round rectangular button. Drag 3 of them, stick them on the canvas. This is also gives you a little bit more practice. You can put them anywhere you want. Doesn't really matter what you do with them. And call one of them red. And actually, you can change the colors if you want. Green. We're gonna use these buttons to change the background color. Green. What was the other one? Blue. Blue. All right. Got your 3 buttons on there. Hopefully you're close to that. And then you want to click on the little tuxedo icon up here. Bring up the source code window. Some people like to get rid of extra stuff, extra clutter. This would be one of them actually. You can click on the right, gets rid of the extra clutter. So the extra clutter, well, it's the properties window from the view that we just looked at. So.
Just try to set it down.
Oh, did you, okay, we have help.
No, this is where I had a question.
Yes, this is where you had a question. What was your question?
How do we set the ID for those buttons on the property window?
Oh, I'm going to show you that. You missed that step. That's why we're going through this many, many, many times. Yes?
One more question, Barbara. Instead of dragging button 3 times, have I copy paste? And
Yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to do that with a calculator because we're going to put like 10 buttons on there. We're just going to put 1 and then cut and paste it. So I'm going to show you that later.
So if you copy paste, is it the same instance? It understands it?
No, it's different. We're going to see that. We're going to do that with a calculator. But what she was saying is, couldn't you just go like this and copy it? Which, oops, not like this. Edit, copy, paste. Oops, hold on. Edit, paste. Now I have another one. What gives this identity is when we connect it, when we wire it to the interface, which we haven't done yet. So we can do this a million times. Once we wire it, here's an example. I have the 2 buttons here. Okay, so let's answer your question and her question all at the same time. I cut and pasted and I have 2 blue buttons, right? So I'm going to right mouse click on this one and I'm going to drag the touchdown event. Where is it? Touchdown right here. You don't have to do this, by the way. I'm just showing you guys. Hold down the control button. You get the little the blue arrow. This is where you're changing the ID of the button. I'm going to call this one button 1. Button blue 1. button blue 1. And I'm going to put it on UI button instead of ID. Remember last time we talked about that. And I press connect. This method is going to turn into a method because it's an IB action. If I want to turn it into a property, I don't right mouse click. I click on it, hold down the control button and drag it this way. Let go. And I'm going to call it blue 1. This is part of the learning objective tonight, which is why I'm doing this anyway. Now I have two things. I have it as a property with an ID of blue 1, which is what I'm calling it. I also have an action associated with it, which is going to be a method that's going to run when something happens, when an event is received from the button. So what was your question?
Yeah, my question is, can you see get the property windows on the side? Yeah, here, can we go and set those IDs for that instead of dragging and
In
dropping?
extremely old versions of Xcode, that's what you did. It's the old way that they used to have you do it. And if you have an old book, it'll have you do it this way.
Okay.
Because the instructions are for an old version of Xcode.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing on here now that will allow you to do it that way.
Yeah,
They took the feature out.
I was just looking at the
That was prior to the properties, actually. Yeah.
Because in Android under we go on the property.
Yeah, that's the. Well, they're still kind of sort of doing it with the Android interface, but they're moving towards this also. So eventually it's going to be more like this. But Xcode, back when it had the interface builder, you had to actually set the property to match the property that was in the code. But now that the interface builder is part of the environment now, you don't have to do that. So, and to continue with your question, so I have blue 1, so I can do the same thing. I can press down the control button, drop it here. Now I'm going to call this one blue 2. And now, although I cut and pasted it over here, it's wired as 2 different buttons. So actually, I'm going to go ahead and wire this one again. I'm going to take and do the same thing with the touchdown, because I have to do this eventually anyway with the buttons. So now I'm going to put this one in here. I'm going to call this one button blue 2. So if you did this with your calculator, you could cut and paste and then just change the labels. So I can change the label here and call this blue 2. Even though I cut and pasted it, I didn't really cut and paste anything. It's just on the interface builder that I cut and pasted the object itself. So I'm going to call this one blue 1 and blue 2. But really it's a button.
And they're two separate objects.
Yep, watch this. So I got that one, that one.
I thought it would be.
And yeah, when you're cutting and pasting, you're just cutting and pasting the GUI component. And then when you wire it, which is why they call this wiring, you're wiring it to different controls. Actually, you can take the same button. Let's do this. And I'm going to wire it again to another property. I already have a property, right? So I'm going to press the control button. I'm going to take it down here. And let's just put it above here. I'm going to say blue 2 or whatever. Blue 2 2 2 2. Now I have one property that says blue 2 2 2 2 and one property that says blue 2. But they're both properties are going to the same button, which is kind of the opposite of 2 buttons going to 2 different, well, hopefully you understand what I mean. So then I can do the same thing with multiples. Okay, for example, this is confusing part as well. I already have an IB action because I always select by default the touchdown, and you can see the touchdown here. You can only do 1 event per method because it confuses Xcode or confuses. So I can do a, let's say for example, touch up inside, which is another good one, and I can wire this one. And I'm going to call this one touch inside blue. And now you see I have 2 of them on here. So I have 2 button actions. Well, these are different actions, though they're associated with the same button. So what you could do is make it extremely difficult for your user. So you touch it long, you touch it short. Actually, that's different as a gesture. But you touch it up inside, you touch it to the left, you touch it to the right, you touch down inside of it. All those different little touch things are all different. and the device is pretty sensitive. Something new could happen with each one of them, as an example. So, were you going to do an announcement?
Yes, please.
Okay, let me just pause this then.
What was the wonderful program that she wrote?
Oh, she took a she did a computer graphics program with it was a 3D animation, and I can't remember. It was an XYZ coordinate system where she took a line and did a spiral, I think, with it. I can't remember exactly. In fact, probably ask her. She's a better expert. I saw like the glimpse of it and went, oh, that's cool. Using CG graphics, the computer graphics for OpenGL. So, haven't showed you that yet, but iPhone supports native OpenGL underneath it. So you can write and use OpenGL libraries for 3D graphics and animation.
That's kind of a standardized technology. So if you've got a whole chunk of native OpenGL code
You can put it on the iPhone.
and on your Android phone,
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
minimal
Yeah.
tweaking, maybe even none.
That's why people like it. And also, like, to integrate from a computer environment, like legacy code. OpenGL's been around for a long time. So if you have something that works to do some animation or some object creation stuff, depends on what you're doing. If for gaming, it's easy to take OpenGL code for games and translate it over into iPhone games, iOS games. Yeah, it's nice. It didn't originally have all the support that it has now, and then Android didn't originally have it, but it does. So the current version of everything has. In fact, Android is becoming more like iPhone, actually. The newer Android SDK is very similar.
It's funny how that happens.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad it went to iPhone direction and not the opposite.
Yeah. Still got
yeah.
tools that are just not in the
Antiquated.
same, not in the same league as these tools.
No, this is faster, and the emulator support for the iPhone is so much better.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to torture yourself, take the Android class. All right, back to iPhone. As from our sponsored break, let's see. We are on number 5. Wire your buttons. So I have to wire the rest of my buttons. I only wired a couple of them. Actually, I wired the blue one 3 times. So you don't actually have to set the properties, but you do have to set the wiring. So I'm going to go ahead and make some space down here on the bottom and wire my red and my green button as well. Hopefully you have figured out how to do this as well. So this one's going to be the red button. And again, I keep changing all the IDs, the UI buttons, because it's a little bit clearer that way. You can leave it on IDs though, works the same way. But for our purposes, we're not going to use it as a generic ID. I'm sorry, one more time? Do you have Xcode installed?
Actually, this is I've already got 2 laptops.
Oh, hold on. Let me pause this for a second. Okay, we're back. We're gonna finish this example. All right, so I've got my red button. Let me get my green button here. Maybe you guys have finished. I'm probably behind the rest of you here. So let me drag this one over. This is the green button. So this should be like old news to you at this point. Hopefully. So now what we're going to do is we're going to flip this over because we are in the .h file, and this is the interface, and we have all of our properties. If normally what we do at this point would be to synthesize the properties if we we're going to follow the pattern. Don't really need to, but we could. What we're going to basically do, and what I normally do, is I kind of flip it over to make sure I have all of the methods created correctly, and I don't have any odd error messages or anything that are popping up. And I don't see any, so I'm in good shape. So I'm going to go back to the instructions here. And I see I have the IB actions for all 3 of them. Now I'm going to open up the viewcontroller.m file. And then here's the code for each one of the buttons, and I want to talk about Xcode a little bit. I want to talk about Objective-C code, actually, is what I meant to say a little bit right now. So go ahead and cut one of these here, and or copy it, excuse me, and let's paste it in one of the methods here. And I copied the green one, so I'm going to paste the green one in here, in the green method. If you're familiar with C++, this code will look a little bit familiar to you. If you're not, then this is actually a combination of Objective-C and C++ sort of syntax. So UI color is interesting. It's a built-in color component for user interface. This is why we have UI label, UI button, UI round, UI everything for user interface. Green color is a built-in color. There's red color, blue color, orange color, white color, black color, you name it. There's about 16 or 20 of them actually. You're not going to know about all this until you go online or you find a reference book. This is where all the reference material comes into place. So what we're doing here is we're looking at the view controller, and the view controller is controlling the GUI, which is our topic for tonight, is how to program the GUI essentially. And so it's self because it's the current object that's running. So this is object-oriented programming, and we actually have 3 sets of files. We have the app delegate, we have the view controller, and then we have the view, which is our model view controller. If you remember from the previous weeks, I've talked about this. So this is really our view. So we can tell the view a bunch of stuff. And in this particular case, self, which is the current object, .view, .background color is equal to UI color green color, which is a method call in Objective-C follows this syntax. This is more of the C++ syntax. This works as a combination, but most of our methods that we've seen so far have been in this form. Actually, here's a method call up here. Super space view did load, which means from super run the view did load method. And if we were running something, we'd go self space button blue 1 or whatever. We'd run the method on the object, so it's the message to the receiver. So the first component is the object that's going to receive the message. The second is the message that's going to be sent to the object. I felt it was kind of necessary to go over a little bit of Objective-C code because we're going to be doing a little bit more programming tonight with it. And some of you aren't in the Objective-C class. So bear with me if you're already in the Objective-C class because this is a repeat. So what I'm going to do, yeah?
Just a very quick question here. So the right-hand side of that assignment, UI color, green color, that's saying you have a UI color object and you're invoking the green color method of it.
Correct.
That's going to return green color.
Correct.
Perfect.
And it's going to be equal to the background of the view of a self.
Yes.
So if you work backwards, actually that's a good scenario. If you work backwards from your direction, if I do the same thing with the red button, and actually now that I have the green button syntax, I can actually just paste in here. Oops, I don't know what I did. Let me just cut this again, or copy it. I can just paste this in here. I don't need to really go back and paste the other lines because I can just change the color here, and this one's going to be red. So I'm taking red color from UI color, and the UI color is an interesting component. That's actually the color. So it's a color object that we're sending red color to, but we're assigning the background color to an object of a color, which is interesting. Think of this all as object. Everything in Objective-C is an object instead of a parameter. So in other styles of format of source code writing, you're working with parameters and values that you're assigning to variables. Here you have objects and you're sending messages to objects, and everything's an object. So we have that scenario going on. So I'm going to paste it again here, and then this one is going to be called blue. Finally going to have the blue button here. Blue. And then I can, maybe for these other blue buttons here, I have multiple blue buttons, so I'm going to go ahead and paste this in for the rest of them, just in case it doesn't pick up my my colors correctly, my touches correctly. But anyway, long story short, each one of these methods that I had for the blue 1 and blue 2 can have different actions associated with them. So if I run this program right now, if I don't get any error messages, which I don't, when I click on the buttons, they should be changing the background color of the view to blue, green, or yellow, or whatever it is I set it to, which in this particular case is red, blue, and green. Any moment my emulator should come up. Here it is. So we got red, green, blue. Oh, blue. I didn't set this button, I just set this button. So obviously. This should be easy to you right now. This should be something that you can feel comfortable doing on your own. Because after the first couple weeks, this is week number 4, by the way. So after the first couple weeks, hopefully we're kind of edging into this. Yes?
Do you have anything like dynamic where you can dynamically change the background?
Yeah.
So
This is
that-
just on a button control.
okay.
Yeah, you can do it. Actually, watch this. On the view did load method. Actually, I could ask any one of you. You probably would answer the same question. How do we do it? Well, we can do it in the view did load method. As soon as the view loads up, we can change the background. In fact, here we go. We
Can you
just
set any timer?
yellow. We can do it on a timer. Actually, last week. Hey, were you here last week?
Yes.
Okay, last week when we did the clock, we created a timer object, NS timer, and on the timer at 5 minutes or 5 seconds, we could have the background change to blue. We can have the background change to orange. We just make an instance of the timer object and we tell the object, well, actually we could make a method, call it countdown or something, or set time. So now when this, I set the background color to yellow, I did it in the view did load, which is the method that runs automatically when the view loads, after the view did load, if the view did load. And now when it comes up, the background should be yellow. Believe it or not, all these little pieces fit together. That's what I'm trying to tell you. They all kind of build on each other, but after, you have to sort of experiment with this a lot in order to get comfortable with this. See, now we have yellow. So I could very easily have something else in the code to do something else programmatically, to change the background color, to make a button appear, make a button go away. Common thing is with labels. You know, you go to a screen and after a certain amount of time, you haven't done anything, and a little label comes up and says, hey, press this.
Yeah, just sitting there.
Yeah. And I'm going to show you alerts in a few minutes actually as well, which I haven't shown you yet. So anyway, so this should have been an extremely straightforward, easy so far. Let's make it a little bit more of a challenge. Let's talk about receivers, because I haven't talked about receivers yet. And remember last time I said the keyboard, you know, the keyboard comes up and then you tell the keyboard to go down, resign the keyboard, make the keyboard go up. So we'll put a few more things on here. This is an extension off of Hello World, so this is also a very easy component here. We're going to put a text field and a label on here. And now we can actually change the labels if we want by the buttons. We can change the text field. We can get the text from the buttons. We can do all sorts of things with the buttons. So what we're trying to look at tonight is the programming component. We've seen this actually with Hello World, but it was mostly with the library and the what is a text object and what's a label object. So drag a text field and a label to the view. So I'm going to come in here. If I can find my, here it is. And open up my library. Now that the stuff goes away, you also know this. You can press the buttons on the right-hand side. It brings back the sidebar. And so now I'm going to put, oh, here's the text field right here. So I'm going to put a little text field in here. And I'm going to put in here what do I want, a label. Take the label, put it in here. So I get the label in the text field. Perfect. Alright, and so now I'm going to have it do something. What am I going to, just anything. So let's see. So right mouse click on the, right mouse click on the text field and drag the did end on exit. So that's why this is in here. But before we do that, I want to make two properties. I want to make the label property and the text field property, because we want to be able to communicate with these items. So in our Xcode, we know in order to wire them, to communicate with them, if we're not looking at an action, we can just do a generic property with it. So drag those two items over and make properties out of them. Make sure you have the .h file open up when you're doing this. Very common mistake to kind of switch, not to switch back, to leave the .m file open. So I'm going to make some room at the top of my code here. Oops, not that much room. I'm going to take and press down the control button and drag this property over and call this one the text box. Text field. I'll call it the text field, UI text field. And the label. Are we good so far? We just made two properties out of that. We have the text field and the label. every time I do that, I always want to come over here and make a synthesize out of it, so I'm going to do that right now, actually. I'm going to come over here to the view controller, and underneath where it says at implementation, I'm going to put, let's see, synthesize, and I'm going to put in here the label, comma, the text field. Because we know they come in sets, property, and synthesize. Hopefully that's looking a little bit familiar to you as well. Should be something you can do, hopefully. A little effort. So let me go back to the .h file, because I'm going to add something else which is kind of interesting. So, according to our instructions here, we've created the two properties. Now we're going to right mouse click on the text field and drag this thing called a did end on exit. And we're going to label the connection exit text and select the UI text field for the type. And so we're going to have this thing here that says IB action. How can we have an IB action on a text field? Which is kind of interesting. So it's going to show you that some of the items that aren't necessarily apparent, like a button, could have an action. What's the action going to be? Well, if I right mouse click on it, I see I do have some actions up here. And I see this newest version does not have my action in here. Did you see it in the menu?
Yeah.
Where is it? Oh, here it is, right here. Okay. Did end on exit, thank you. So go ahead and drag this one over here. Which is interesting because we said the same. You know, this is interesting because the older version didn't have all of the button options on the text field options. So you can treat a text field like a button field now, which is kind of confusing. In the old days, it just showed you those two little options. So what are we dragging over here? This thing called did end on exit, which meant when we're done, exit the field. So when we click on a button, it's highlighted while we're touching the button. When we touch something else, that other item gets highlighted. In this particular case, when we type text in, when we press return, we're done with the button, which means we can now get rid of the keyboard, which is what we're going to do. Send a responder, first responder to the keyboard to say get rid of you. Close the keyboard. Otherwise, the keyboard sits up there, and you can't do anything with it. So I'm going to call this one, what am I supposed to call it? Exit something? I'm going to call it exit text. Exit text. And the type is a UI text field. I'm going to keep it on that. It's just out of habit I like to do that. So now I have this IB action called exit text. Now over here, I can actually change the property here to pick up the exit return key over here. On the right hand side, what I did is I clicked on the little properties button and I clicked on the text field. And I see return key. You can change this one to done, actually. This sends a done, which means it's an exit. Why did they call it? Why didn't they call it exit? I don't know. But this is an exit out of the text field kind of scenario that occurs. So the return key sends a done. So you want to make sure that that's on done as well. You don't actually have to. If you didn't do that, we could actually get the done. We can actually program something else for that behavior as well. But change the return key property of the text field to done, which was step number 11.
How did you bring up those properties for the text field?
How did I bring them up? They're over here on the right-hand side.
Okay.
So on the view, there's this little thing here. But you have to make sure you clicked on the text field when you do that, if you want to get the properties for the text field. And the done is actually kind of interesting. It's down towards the bottom of the basic properties for text field.
Can you explain this did and on exit agreement consequences?
When you press the return key, that's what this return key right here is. On a text field, it has this return key property. And the return key property could bring up Yahoo, Google. Let's say, for example, you were building a search engine and you had a text field in there or typing in a URL. If I put this on Google, it'd bring up Google in my way. It would signal Google. It's just search on it, which is automatic behavior you can put in there. And then I'd have to have a web view to bring up Google in. and I could just set it and it would actually do it for me automatically. Here I'm just going to say done, which means I want it to exit. So I personally would have called it exit.
Maybe Microsoft has used it. So
Oh, I don't know. I don't think it has any. I don't think it has anything to do with Microsoft. But emergency call, Yahoo, send, search. It's just classic events that you're pushing. You're sending the event. So let's go back to sender for a second here. If I look at, whoops. Let me get rid of the side piece. Make my property bigger over here. If I look at the UI buttons down here, I have this thing called sender. Sender comes from, it's a sender meaning something's going to be sent to it or it's going to send an event to another component. The return key sends done. Done responds to, exit. IB action here for exit text is going to respond to done.
Then what will happen is the app will be closed with that.
Nope. I'm going to show you what's going to happen. We made an action here. I thought we made an action here. Let's see. Maybe it's up here. IB action. Here's our IB action here. Edit text for the done event. So when we receive done, which means we pressed return, it's sent done, it's going to perform whatever we put into this method, which we haven't put in there yet. We're going to add some code to the method, and the method's going to be designed to remove the keyboard, get rid of the keyboard. So hold that thought for a second. I might answer your question for you. Where did that too many methods here. It's on the bottom. Okay. So I'm going to add the code on the bottom here where it says exit text. This is my IB action. So optionally add a label and type something on it if you want. Put it above the text field so it gives some instructions for the user to type something. Switch to the viewcontroller.m, synthesize synthesize the label, we already did that. So add the code to the exit text action button. So I'm just going to cut and paste this and I'll show you what this does in a few minutes here. So I've pasted it down here, and I have the text field, resign first responder, which is setting the label of the text field to the text field tag. Oops, here we go. Oops. Okay, so this is a built-in method that's going to respond to whatever responded to the event that occurred originally when we went into the text field, which is going to be the keyboard. And it's going to resign the first responder, which means take it away and come back. So without this method here, let me show you what happens without this method actually. Because right now we can run it. The line underneath it is the labeled space set text. This is like hello world. We've seen the source code before. And we're setting the text field to the text. We're going to set the text label to whatever it is we typed in on the text box. So if I run this right now, we're going to see what happens. The first responder is going to come up when we type in, first responder in this particular case is going to be the keyboard. What we're just going to do is resign it, which means take it away. On the done, which means when we press return, on the return key we're going to capture the done event. The done event is going to resign the first responder. So without it, because I commented out the code, if I click in the button here, if I press no, I thought I commented it out. Well, keyboard's supposed to stay up. Well, alright. In most cases, the keyboard stays up. This is a test. Keyboard's going away. Let me change something actually and see what happens. Actually, I'm going to put it back in. The keyboard is supposed to stay up, however. Let me get rid of the done on the respond because they may have actually fixed it. There was a case in which it was supposed to automatically go away on the done. Let's see. See? Okay, so let me try something interesting here. Very interesting. I'm going to take this property and I'm going to change it, actually. I'm going to take away the done here. I'm going to put it on default, which is where it was before. Remove the first responder. What I want to do is make the keyboard stay up. Yours may or may not. Older versions of Xcode, when you changed the done, when you changed it to the done, you still had to add the resign on the first responder. No. Okay, we're in good luck. It's going away on its own. Alright, well then we don't have to do that anymore. It will go away on its own. Yes? That doesn't look too good. You know what? You have an error message in the background. I would clean your project. So exit the iOS simulator. Go to Product and select Clean. And then run it again. You have an exception that's appearing in the background. As it appears, the behavior for the keyboard is automatic. In older versions, and if you ever have a case in which the keyboard doesn't go away, it might just be going away because I'm using a keyboard. If I had it on the device itself, it may actually stay up, which is what I'm thinking. But to put this line of code in here is essentially going to resign the first responder, which is the keyboard. Which came out. Anything that would be basically taking, in like websites as an example, when it tabs from one component to another, it basically makes it go to the next one and resign whatever action or behavior was occurring on the first one. So it sends it on to the next GUI component that's in the chain, that's on the event there. And the line of code here is basically the hello world, what we've looked at a long time ago, that basically sets the label to set text. Yes?
So here the keyboard which was popped up, that will go away when celebrate and
It should, but you know, there's no enter on the keyboard. Okay, so the reason why I can't get it to not go away is because I'm using a keyboard on the simulator. On the device itself, the keyboard is going to stay up there, I believe. It should stay up there until the responder comes back and says done. And when the event sends done, when the sender receives done, it runs the exit text, because this is on the exit on the done, exit on done event, which is going to essentially do something. In this particular case, it's resigning the first responder, which is the keyboard. So the keyboard should go away.
So basically
It's going away for us automatically, but we're using a keyboard on a simulator, which is why we can't simulate it. Yes?
Yeah, that's right. We are not using the.
If we actually use the phone, or we actually use the, oh, that's a good question. Let's see. I'm going to take this off here and just use the keyboard that's on the phone, on the simulator. Let's see what happens in that particular case.
clicking on the return, it
Goes away? Yeah. Perhaps then we don't need it anymore. Could be. Actually, though, I had some old projects though that needed it. You know, sometimes that keyboard just doesn't go away. If the keyboard doesn't go away, let's see. How did you get the keyboard?
The return,
Ah, if your keyboard doesn't have that, then that might be a problem.
we're not triggering the event.
Not triggering the event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. All right, so we get the picture, I hope. Yes.
Sure, so the first responder of
That's the first responder. The first thing that happened when I clicked into this box was that keyboard came up, and we're resigning that first responder.
And so how is there like a mapping or which UI component has what kind of
Yep, there's a ton of documentation on that. That's where you get those reference books. So I was talking about with UI color. I was going to know how many, I don't even know how many colors there are. I don't even know how many responders there are in all these different events. Nor do I know exactly what does the touch up inside do versus the touch down. How do you touch up inside of an object versus touch down on an object? And How are you going to sim? The documentation will tell you all that. And not only that, but it tells you all these different things that might be associated with it in terms of other behaviors. But every one of these has got a first responder, whether or not you're going to do something with it. But this one here is typical to get rid of the keyboard, actually. So. All right. There's one more thing I forgot to show you before we get into the calculator. I'm going to show you the UI pop-up windows. I didn't show you those alert windows. Any questions before we continue on the button controls? So basically what you're doing is you're creating those items and then you're writing the source code to do something, to send messages to those objects. We have a nice little PowerPoint one actually. It's called UIAlertView. And this one here is also located at the same location. I had it downloaded, actually, oops. Had it downloaded for last week and I just realized I didn't go through it. It is in the example projects. Was in the example projects. Here it is. It's in the tutorials. On the first, it's called UIAlertView. It's a PowerPoint, which is why it's not in the example projects. There's no solution for it, but I want to show you something else. It has to do with those little pop-up windows and alert boxes and windows and things. It's another event that occurs when the user does something. So this is the tutorial here. If you want to download it, go through it optionally, you can. So here it is here. And this is a very simple one. It's only like four or five different steps to it. But I want to talk about the UI view a little bit, UI alert view. So we know these are views, and they're UI views. So this is where the UI alert view terminology comes from. So what's an alert? It's like a stop, warning, error. These are like those little pop-up windows. We have pop-up windows on the iPhone, iOS. Same thing you get on Windows development. So simply maybe just shows some information that says OK or cancel. So it allows you to respond in different ways depending upon which button is also pressed. So you can go, press A, B, or C. Okay, select something. We also have different types of UI alerts that show up different menu selections. So it doesn't have to look like a traditional alert box. So you want more than the default cancel button alert, you have to adopt a UI alert view delegate protocol. So that's kind of a new feature, which is why I wanted to bring this kind of a simple example up. So open up a single view application. So go to Xcode. Actually, I'm going to clear this out, make it a little bit easier here. So we know we can go to open, recent, and then clear menu if we want to get rid of the clutter there. Oops, I don't want that one, I want this one. Let's cancel this one. So create a new Xcode project. Single view application. Just make sure. Single, yeah, this is another single view. Select auto reference counting, don't select storyboard, don't really need it for this application. Okay. So I'm going to call this one UI views. Again, I'm going to put it on an iPhone, use automatic reference counting. And save it to the desktop. One of the things, if you're still having a problem with that project, is if you've deleted buttons and then added buttons again, it has you might probably want to upgrade your Xcode. One of the first versions of the latest, the 4.5 something, has a problem with garbage collecting.
At 4.5.2.
Upgrade. You might solve that problem, because if you put a bunch of stuff on the GUI, I suspect you put something on the window, you deleted it, and you put something else on the window after that. That's what the problem is. That or don't delete stuff. You have that problem too sometimes. If you upgrade it, it shouldn't. It's supposed to. That was one of the things that was fixed in the latest upgrade. It's a problem with garbage collecting. The way you can get rid of it is to clean it, close it down, shut down Xcode completely. I've actually had to reboot the computer to have it all go away, and then bring it up, or bring it up on a different computer, and it actually fixes it.
Do you know have time
It's
to
a
do it
bug.
right
If you upgrade, it's going to take you about 20 minutes maybe,
Next time.
and you can't have Xcode loaded.
Yeah.
But
Really?
it should work just fine for this if you start brand new. Don't start with a brand new project. The one you have gotten is corrupted. And it's corrupted because of the memory management problem. It's a bug in Xcode. Okay, I have a new project open. Alright, so I'm going to click on the XIB file. When have we done that before? Okay, there we go. Add a button to the user interface that will bring up the alert view when pressed. Open up the library and drag a UI button to the view. Change the title of the button to change color. And if desired, change the view's background color. When you're done, the interface should look like this. Do that. So put a little button there. It says change button on there. Excuse me, change color. So I'm going to assume you guys have gotten this far. Put here change color. I change my background color to something. I'll just make it green. Make it green. There we go. Nice little button. All right. This project's got a slight twist to it. Not twist, but something different. Click on the editor tuxedo. Bring up the interface file. Right mouse click, touch, drag it down. Same as before. Create a button and call it button touched. So any of the actions, call it button touched. So click on the editor. Right mouse click on the button. Touch down, control. Control drag it. And call this one BTN touched. And I'm going to change the ID to UI button. Same thing we've been doing for the last 2 weeks, 4 weeks or so. UI button. Alright. So let's see what else we're going to do here. Open up the viewcontroller.m and add the implementation of the touch button. Okay. So this is where I'm actually just going to cut and paste this over here. Whoops. Hello. Copy. That's why I say it's nice to download that file. It is a PowerPoint file I opened up in Preview, however, so I can cut and paste it. If you put it in PowerPoint, it doesn't cut and paste or copy and paste too well. So this is going to be the code that's going to be for the button touched button. And here it is, button touched. So let me talk about this code for a second here. Oops, this code's got some issues here with the alignment. Get rid of this side piece here. There we go. Okay, so for those people that were in the Objective-C course today, we learned about initializers. And so we're running an initializer here. And so we've got, this is why you want to know about initializers. So we're running an instance of, we're creating an instance of this thing called a UIAlertView. We're going to call it color alerts. So this is the name of the object that we're creating. We're running UIAlertView alloc to allocate the object. Instead of running init like we normally would, we're going to run init with title. So now we're initializing a new alert view, giving it some parameters upon the initialization. If you are not in the Objective-C course and you want an introduction to initializers, watch the video from today's class earlier today, 3 o'clock video. I went through initializers. We're sending it 2 parameters. We're going to send it change color, and the message is going to be choose a color. And then we have this delegate, which is kind of interesting. So the app delegate is this app delegate up here. It's a set of classes that controls the data component of the application. So going back to model view controller, we're controlling the view through the controller. The view is the view. That's where we're dragging all the buttons to. App delegate is really controlling the behavior of the data that we're using. It's the data component. So it's the model. It's the M part of the model, data model. Then we have the view, then we have the controller. So we're telling it to put on a cancel button, and then if we had it do something, we could program the behavior for the cancel button. We can actually add other buttons. Here's another button for red, yellow, blue, nil. And then we're sending at the end. This is a semicolon at the end. We're saying color alert, which is this object that we created, space show, which is what's showing it. So we're creating the object by running the initializer to populate the data and register the information with the delegate to say that we're going to put this view up and catch whatever we have data-wise that's going to come out of the view, and then we're going to program some options if we choose to. Yes?
What web page is this from?
Oh, I'm sorry. If I go back to here, we're looking at in-course materials from iOS development. Spring to, if I go back to the beginning here, bhacker.com. And then at the way beginning, the main menu, we have this Spring 2013, iOS application development, PowerPoint lectures, tutorial UI alert view. Is where that's coming from. You need this file because you're going to want to cut and paste that code. You don't want to type it. And this is a PowerPoint file, but you can bring it up in preview and cut and paste a lot easier. Okay. So let's see. Color alert space show, which is the message show that we're going to send to the color alert, the color object that was just created, and we initialized it with the information. So we basically created a new instance of this object and then initialized it using one of the custom initializers that we created. So if I go back to the PowerPoint here, so look at what's going on here. The title that we gave it, which is going to be called Change Color, will appear at the top of the message just below it, with the message just below it. The next buttons will be displayed with the 3 other button titles that we have, displaying followed by a cancel button title on the bottom. So the delegate parameter defines the object that will handle the button touches, as I mentioned before. So in this case, self, meaning the view controller. So self on here where it says delegate down here, self's going to handle it, which means if I put code in to handle the button presses, I'd put them in here in the view controller. Where the method to the change button, we did that already. Just going to test the app. We'll run the app now and see the alert view that shows up, but noting that nothing was going to happen at the alert button because we haven't actually programmed anything in it, so outside of the alert being dismissed. So in order to handle the touches, we actually have to create some code for that. So let's just run it right now. We'll see what happens. We're going to get a color alert window that's going to show up. When we press the button, it's going to ask us to choose a color, red, yellow, or blue. So what we've done, just to reiterate the point, is we've created a new instance of an object and called it color alert, and the object type is UIAlertView. And this is what a UIAlertView does. In essence, it brings up an alert view. So if I press this little button here, that's my UIAlertView, by the way. My UIAlertView has a title called Change Color. It has a description underneath it, a message in here called Choose a Color. But nothing's going to happen. So if I press on red, nothing happens. Blue, nothing happens. Or none. Do I have none in here? I do have none in here. So these are my button choices that I've gotten in here. So sometimes you see these really fancy ones that says, hey, send an email message, do this, do that. You can do anything you want, actually. Sometimes you can get this button, this UI alert view is showing up because we're pressing this button here because we have it controlled to the button click events that we looked at. We could have it so you just put your finger, but it's hard to simulate that. Just press down in the back a long time, a long press, or a gesture could bring it up. Yeah?
Here it's not doing anything because we are doing this delegate cell. Is it because of that?
No, we haven't written the code yet.
So what is this delegate cell?
This delegate means we're going to handle the behavior because we set the delegate to self, meaning the data that's going to be programmed for the control options that we select. And here's the options. We have all the blue colors, yellow. These are the other button titles that we put up here. Is going to be inside our code right here.
What would be the other option?
We haven't done it yet. We haven't programmed the options yet. But it's going to be here. It's not going to be in another class, another instance of. We could actually say delegate app delegate and put it over here if we wanted to. It's basically, where do I go to look for the code that's going to implement these methods? Because something's going to happen with these alert view methods. When we click on it, it's going to register to say, hey, we clicked on the blue button or the red button.
So every time we, most of the time we'll set delegate with self, because every time
Yeah.
we get an
Yeah.
error, so either we have to do OK or cancel or some option, right?
What do you mean you'll get an error?
No, I think most
Oh,
of the
for
time
an alert box, you're probably going to handle it inside of the code, yeah. Because you're going to want to troubleshoot errors and stuff. So did it work? Okay, good. I saw something going on over there. Alright, let's take this a step further. I'm going to close down the simulator. Actually, you can leave the simulator on. I just have a tendency to close down. So we're going to modify the view controller to add the behavior. And so what are we going to do here? We're going to add a method called AlertView, UIAlertView, on a clicked button at index. So this is a AlertView object that we created that's going to send a message to another method. It's not us. It is us. It's the user who's clicking on one of the buttons. But it's going to take, and it's going to find this in self, because we're going to put this inside of the same file as we put the method that's actually handling the alert view. The alert view is going to pick up, it's going to register what index number was clicked on, and then run this method that's associated with it. So I'm going to go ahead and cut and paste this, and I'm going to stick it inside of the. If you want, there's a lot more reading that I'm skipping over in this tutorial that you might find interesting, which explains a little bit easier. So I'm going to stick it underneath here. So I'm in the viewcontroller.m, and I'm going to paste it in here. And I need to put a semicolon at the end of that one. Oops, no, I have a zero in here. A break. Let's see. One more closing bracket. How's that? And did I? Well, let's take a look here. Oh, no, that zero doesn't belong. It's a break with a closing bracket. Let's take a look here. So I've got an opening, closing, a closing. An interesting special character from my paste job. When you have errors, and you can explain why you have errors, and you just pasted something in, just go ahead and start deleting lines, because there's a hidden character or something in there, a line return or something that didn't pick up correctly when you pasted it in. One of the problems of cutting and pasting, I should say. And then this doesn't update until you clean it or save it. So I'm going to clean it. Oh, and I have an error. No, I have an opening, and closing. Expected expression. What am I missing here? Expected expression. Let's take a look here.
Do you forget the semicolon?
Yeah. Okay. Oops, what's wrong here? Hold on one second, let me stop this. Oops. No, that's a bad idea. Let's take it back to here. Hold on one second. Expected expression. Let's see what's going on here. Oh, did I put it in the wrong file? No.
No,
Hold on one second.
click on that red.
It says expected expression. Let's see, hold on one second. Switch button index. This is what I'm doing. Switch button. Let me just get rid of some of this. This should work actually. Unless I'm missing another. An opening? I have a closing. Hold on one second. Oh, we didn't extend. In order to handle the touches on the events, we must implement one of the app delegates methods. We did that. First parameter of this method will be the alert box. Yes, it is. Button index 0. Well, interesting. Everybody else getting the same message? Yours is working? Maybe it was my cut and paste job. I'm just getting rid of anything that's not necessary in here. Interesting.
Is there some like non-visible character?
That's what I'm thinking, actually. Because I'm getting some really weird behavior right there. Ah, there we go.
That looked like an X code issue. Because
Well, clean succeeded, no error. Let's take a look here. See, that's what I mean. Persistence. Here we go. It was, you know, when I cut and paste, I just don't like cutting and pasting, but it's better than typing. Sometimes when I cut and paste, I had some extra character or something I couldn't see that was in there that got pasted. So that code is correct, however. It does work, and here it's going to work right now. So what is it going to do now? So this is going to pick up, so the alert view here is overloading the alert view functionality on the clicked button at index. Is going to take in the NS integer that we've got that's going to be clicked, and this is the index that's automatically set up for us, kind of like an enumeration where we have the first button item is going to be 0, the second one's going to be 1, 2, 3. Where if we click it, this is the same thing we were doing in the previous example. We're setting the background view to a UI color. So remember the buttons example we just went through? We're doing the same thing again. So now we have red. Now we have yellow. Now we have blue. But we're using an UI alert view now instead of a button for it. It was supposed to show us an easy way, and wasn't supposed to take this long actually. It was supposed to show us an easy way of communicating, but we're not communicating at this point level here. We're communicating through the alert view. We're not communicating with a GUI. Well, we are with a GUI item. It's an alert view that's showing up. The alert view is sending the clicked button at index. So, excuse me, it's calling the click button at index. It's sending the index value for us automatically. So a lot of what we're doing is using the built-in functionality that is part of the behavior of the different objects that we're creating instances of. In this particular case, you're not going to know that until you get one of those little reference books and look up UIAlertView. And then on the UIAlertView, this is just one of the things you can do with it. There's other components. You can get the UIAlertView to show up on the main view by looking at gestures, which we'll probably look at gestures next week, but long presses, short presses. Problem with gestures is you can't mimic them on an emulator. Most of you guys are using the emulators, so that's why I'm kind of like hoping that more people will get their phones configured, because then you can actually load it up on an emulator. Excuse me, load it up on a real device and then play around with the gestures, and then you can actually see this work. All right, so that was the UIV List Builder Calculator. How's that? So let's go on to the calculator. And I believe that's the end of this one here. Button behavior is going to show you, and here's the output, program output. A little summary. UI is the model view, meaning that it blocks touch events from the bubbles from the parent view. So when that UI view, I forgot to mention it, when that UI view is showing anything on the background, it's not going to be captured. It's blocking all of the UI events just to that just to the UI event view. It doesn't hang the UI thread, which is good control. So it doesn't hang the thread, it just pauses it, suspends it. There's actually a life cycle to the particular object itself. We have the view did load, the view did unload, view message, memory messages. We can actually put a pause in there, so on pause, the background could go, let's say, black or something if we wanted to, or change the background color when the view is paused because we have another alert view showing or something. All right, lo and behold, calculator. So this is, yes,
Now, when we are changing the color from the pop-up
Uh-huh.
window,
yes.
so when the pop-up window appears, the view is, there are two. We are changing the background of the view, which is the base view, from the normal view.
Hold on one second. When this comes up, the point that I was trying to make was if I clicked on the background, nothing's going to happen. The view's taking control. So in one moment, this will click up. This will open up, actually. I haven't thrown the project away yet. Here we go. So when I click on the button, I can't click over here. Nothing's going to happen.
Right.
This guy's froze. This guy's freezing, and I can't even move this guy. He's stuck.
Right. My question is,
Yes?
when I click right here, it is changing the background color of the, like,
That's because we're telling it to. We're saying self view background color.
so we can directly write, for example, the view which we are writing, the base view.
Mm-hmm.
So when the pop-up is coming, so that is changing the color of the base view. Right?
Yes. Yes.
So when the pop-up coming, it is also a view, right? The one which we say change.
No, this is a different component. This is an object that we created called a UI alert.
So it is not color. It is not.
It is a sub view of the main view. We could have this do something else that's not affected to this view. It could bring up. It could totally load a different view if we wanted to. It could change its characteristics. When we clicked on red, the none button could go away. It's not limited to just affecting the underlining view. It is a separate sub-view component, though. Any other questions before we move on? All right, let's move on. Believe it or not, this calculator doesn't take that long to build. So. All right, let's take this concept on steroids. We're building this right here, actually. But the more interesting part is the functionality that's behind it. So how do we get the code to work? Well, lucky for you, if you look through the example, all the components are separated out, and so on the button functionality, we're going to keep some temporary variables that are going to keep track of the operators, the previous thing that was touched or captured. And then we're going to send some information back and forth to manipulate a string. We're going to take the string, convert it to a number, add it to another number, convert it back to a string. This is really a combination of everything that we've done so far. And don't turn this in for your assignment, however, make your own calculator. Make a mortgage calculator or something, I don't know, if you're doing that assignment. So open up another Xcode project, brand new one.
Can you tell the web page for me?
Yes, I can. It is out here. This one is in the iOS application development. In the example projects, this one here is called Building a Calculator Tutorial. The finished product is right here. This is the solution. So, anything else before I continue? Okay, good. Let's continue. Open up a single view application. Call this one a calculator. Calculator or something of that nature. I'm going to build it for an iPhone. You can build it for anything you want. And I'm going to use automatic reference counting. And I'm going to click on next. And I'm going to save it to my desktop because I'm just going to destroy it when I'm all done with it. You might save it. You can adapt this one to your own particular calculator if you want to do it that way. So, open up Xcode, single calculator, automatic reference counting. Do not select the storyboard option. Automatically creates everything for you. Drag one label and 17 round rectangular buttons. Oh my god. Well, I'm going to make a row of round rectangular buttons and then I'm going to cut and paste them. How's that? So we don't have to. Or we can actually drag, if we wanted to be really lazy. Do we want to be really, really, really lazy? I can drag. Watch this. Don't recommend this. But if you want to be extremely lazy, I gave you the finished product, right? Where's the finished product? It's in here. Calculator. Here it is, my calculator does it. Lo and behold, in this calculator program, I have an XIB file. Actually, I can be even lazier than this. I can actually open up this project here. Well, I'm not going to do this, and I don't propose to do this, but sometimes you see a GUI you really like. When you open up two Xcode projects, I got two of them open right now. I have one XIB file right here. I got one of them over here too. Lo and behold, here's another one. But look at this one, it's all populated. Drag it. In this particular case, I already have one with that name, so it should tell me. Oh, no, put it right here. So I could delete this one. Ooh, 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 it overrode it. Let's just delete this one. I'm going to rebuild this product. Oh, you know what? I didn't delete it from the disk. Copy it. There it is. But that's kind of like cheating, so you're gonna miss out on the learning experience of cutting and pasting. So if you get frustrated completely, you can drag in an XIB. Actually, you can take it from any project you want. Drag in XIB files if you really like the way something looks and you don't want to have to repeat it. But then you end up with having to do the opposite. So actually, let me put that back. If we dragged it in as an example. Where's my calculator here? I'll bring up the new calculator program that doesn't have any source code in it, actually. This is the one I dragged the file into. If I click on the editor, you see I have an empty view controller, which means I still have to wire everything. You can actually do two things. You can wire it in reverse order, or you can wire it this way. So in this particular case, I dragged and dropped an XIB file and I stuck it into a project. I could do this if I wanted to. I'm going to go back to this original one and play around with it. I could go like this and say, well, I got one that's going to be called the total. Copy. Paste. Oh, this one's actually going to line up because I put it on this GUI here. If I had a different one, I could drag it the opposite direction. This one's actually, because it came from the same project, it's going to line up for me automatically. But what I could do is, let me put another one here. Put another text box here. So I have this text box over here. I could drag it this way instead. Oops, let me get rid of this one. I'll just delete it. Shouldn't be linked anymore. Not going to cooperate, is it? Not going to cooperate. Well, if my mouse was working correctly. It's because I cut and pasted it, it's already linked. Anyway, long story short, I can go the opposite direction. I can take it from here, which is interesting because this is no longer here. Let me clean it. I deleted the label. It hasn't been garbage collected yet. Unless there's a no. So I'm going to have problems with this project, so I'm going to close it and start it fresh. So let's do it the right way. Then, long story short, you can drag and drop and put stuff in there. All right. So new project. I'm going to call this one Calc so I don't confuse it with something else. Now that you guys are creating your interface while I'm doing all this playing around. I'm going to click on the XIB file. And I'm going to start putting some labels over here. Oh, do I want a label? I can put a label on here. Put a button on here. Put another button on here. Put another button on here. And then I can do this. I can group the buttons together. Put 3 of them together. So what I did is I held down the Shift button. So put like 4 buttons on here, 3 or 4 buttons. Click the first one, hold down the Shift button, click the second one, click the third one, click the fourth one. Oops. Oops, it's not going to work for me, is it? Copy. Now it's going to work. Paste. Now I have the collection of buttons. You know, the Shift button is supposed to allow you to multiple select different components for the purposes of cutting and pasting them. So I can easily create this by just pasting this 4 buttons a couple more times here. So what we're going to do is we're going to label all of these buttons together. Put them all together in a same control. So the purpose why you're looking at this particular example is that we've seen a button with an action, a button with an action, a button with an action. We're going to take all of the buttons, all of the number buttons, and attach them to one action. And then take that action and have it do something. And then we'll have another category of actions to do operators, category of actions to act as digits. And then it kind of shows you how to group items together. So go ahead and create this GUI. Maybe I do want to cut and paste it. I don't know. Maybe I will drag it in. All right, I'm going to be stupid. I'm going to drag it in because I'm lazy. So I am going to drag it in. You can drag it in too if you want, or you can create that. But we know how to create that stuff, I hope, at this point. So you want to create a calculator, it looks like that. Don't just use the finished product because then there's no learning objective to it. So where is my finished product? Well, let's take a look here. Calculator. Let me get the right one here. Here we go. All right. So if you are going to do this technique, and which I'm going to do because I just want to save myself time in making this, is delete this one here first. So delete it and then remove it, move it to trash. Otherwise you're going to have 2 copies of the same file called viewcontroller.xib in the same folder, which is going to cause a problem if it doesn't get garbage collected immediately. So move it to trash, which means it's gone from the project completely, and then drag this one into it if you're going to do it that way. And then I'm going to copy it in because I don't want to mess up the original. If I do that, then I've got the view created for me. I don't have any code associated with it. I just have the view created. So let's write the code. So well, let's just pretend we just spent the last 45 minutes putting together this really cool interface. Because that's probably what it would have taken me, perhaps. I don't know. Now if I click on the editor, I'm back to square one because I created my GUI first. And just note that your GUI here is not related to anything. There's nothing, there's old stuff. If I wanted to be legit, I could actually remove all of the old stuff. I just removed something there. So if you right mouse click, you see it's going to be tied to old stuff. So I could, in fact that's what I'm doing right now here, I'll just select an item, right mouse click, and then remove. If you press on the little X here, it'll remove what it was linked to. And you're probably wondering, well, what is this really linked to? Well, this was what was linked on the XIB file to the viewcontroller.h. These are our interface properties. So I'm creating more work for myself by deleting them, but it's gonna, I could leave them alone. In fact, I'll leave some of them alone as well. I'm just showing you can delete it if you've done it this way. And we can automatically change it by adding new components in here and then rewiring it to different things. So sometimes, however, in fact, I'm going to run it right now because sometimes you'll get some interesting error messages that'll come up because those components that it thinks it's linked to is not linked to it anymore. So I'm just going to run it to make sure I've got a pretty clean project here. It's loading up the right view controller. Which should bring up the emulator any moment now. Here it is. Alright, so I'm going to have some interesting behavior when I click on the buttons because those methods don't exist. So now I'm going to start fresh and build the project from this GUI that I kind of cheated with. So because I don't have any code for it yet. Alright, so I'm going to go back to my instructions that said to build this thing. So I got it built. So drag one label and 17 round rectangular buttons so that you get something like this. Okay, good. Control drag the label to the viewcontroller.h file to add it as a property. Let's call it the total. And you'll see this come up. So it's going to be a UI label. We're going to call it the total. So let me go ahead and drag that over. This is the total. Control drag it. I'm going to call it the total. And I'm going to leave it on weak and I'm going to leave it on UI. So what I've done here, if I hadn't removed what I was looking at before, I would have had this now, the total replaced. So the reference is going to automatically update itself. So you don't actually have to worry about removing all of the old references. It will automatically replace with the new reference that you created. Yeah?
I missed that replacing section. Did I need to replace anything?
No, see, I'm going to pick one of these other buttons like down here. If I right mouse click, I see it says touchdown event. It was tied to something. If you click on this little button, it gets rid of it.
Okay. Do I need to get rid of it for all of them?
I probably should have, actually. I got rid of it for some of them. What I was saying, it will automatically replace itself. But if you want to be like ultra sure, when I put it in the emulator a few minutes ago and I ran it, I clicked on one of the buttons that hadn't been replaced. And I got some funny error message that came up because that method didn't exist. It was wired to something that didn't exist.
So leave me alone.
Yeah, I'm actually going to take a few minutes here and clean mine up too. Just so I don't have any problems with forgetting to put a method in and then having it linked to an old method that was out of the old interface.
You have to wire all those counting buttons.
We're going to wire them, but I'm going to show you how to wire them together, which is why I'm sort of deleting them now because I don't want there to be any mistakes. I'm kind of cleaning it up by deleting the old wiring that was on here. I took an old interface, I dragged it in, and it was previously wired to a different XIB, to a different view controller. So these things don't exist anymore because they were from a different project. So I'm just going to kind of finish cleaning it up here. It's actually almost done. I just went by row. I guess I could have been spending the same amount of time building it from scratch and probably would have ended up with the same. I could. You could select them all and delete everything together. I mean like this. But when you right mouse click, you're not going to get the same menu. So what I want, this is going to be different for this field here. These options are going to be different. This one's already wired in, but that option is going to be wired to a property. Anyway, I've cleaned it up. I've cleaned up mine just so I don't have any mistakes on it. And I can tell if I've cleaned it up actually by running it and clicking on the button. So if I get some really strange memory error, it means it's trying to call a wiring that doesn't exist. So these should not give me any strange memory errors, and this is a good way of testing it actually. No strange memory errors because none of them are wired to anything. Before, when I clicked on it, it bombed out on me. So, all right. So don't do that at home, but it's a way of cheating. Steal an XIB file. All right. So now I've got the label in here. So let's follow through the instructions and build the rest of this calculator. So we're going to write the code ourselves, or cut and paste it, I should say. Okay, so we have the total. Add the synthesize for the total. So synthesize the total. So I'm going to go to the viewcontroller.m, and I'm going to remove this because I don't like the interface in here. There we go. And in here, I'm going to, underneath the at implementation, I'm going to put in the at synthesize, and I'm going to put the total in here. Because the total is going to be a property that we're going to keep. It's going to be representing the information that's going to be displayed in our text box out there. So, all right. So I got the total. Is that a label? No, it's a text box. Okay. All right. So let's see. 1 second. I just want to check on something here. There's the label. Okay, good. Very good. All right. So let me pick up where I left off. So here's step number 6. Wire only one of the number buttons touchdown event to the UI view controller.h. Call it number buttons. So take one of the buttons and wire the touchdown event. Call it num buttons. So I'm going to take number 1. I'm going to right mouse click. I'm going to pull over one of the touchdown events. And I'm going to call this one num button. Is it buttons or button? Buttons, plural. Buttons. Num buttons. It's going to be UI button. Press OK. So now I have one button. So I'm going to take the rest of them and wire them into the same button. Connect all of the other buttons to the same IB action. Click on the little black dot next to the line of code and drag the line to all of the other buttons. Now all of the buttons are going to be connected to one. So when we go like this, we have it like that, right? So I can drag it to the one next to it. And then I can drag it to the one next to that one. And now when I click on it, now I see all 3.
Was that touchdown? Or was that just drag?
I did the touchdown events. On the right mouse click on the button, select the touchdown, wire it as the IB action. And then here I'm just simply dragging. I'm not touching any control buttons or anything on the keyboard. So it doesn't really matter which order. I'm kind of going sequentially, but you sort of, it's kind of tedious. Wire this one all the way to all of the numbers, by the way. So I'm going to put this one to the 9 and then 0. So now I can see I have buttons 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0 that are all connected to the same action. Because when we press up one of the buttons, the same thing's going to happen. Depends on what we're going to get out of the button. Yes?
How do you remove an action if you've connected it to the wrong button?
Watch this. So I'm going to click on number 2 as an example. This is what I was trying to do before. You right mouse click. See it down here? There's a little X. Click on that little X and it removes it. That's what I was doing when I got lazy and I dragged that XIB file in. Well, it was all connected to stuff that didn't exist anymore, so I just went in and deleted everything. So now we have our buttons. All yes? It doesn't really matter what it is. It says touch up inside. What happened on the first one? Touchdown. Oh, you're right. I call that one another Xcode bug. It should all be the same. Used to all be the same. But thanks for noting that. Maybe the touch up inside is more of a default activity. Interesting. Don't know why. I would think that it would all be should all have been the same action, so because you're all wiring it the same. All right. You know, you're gonna notice as you the more you start using Xcode, you're gonna notice there's little bugs in it. It's actually not bad, but there are some flaws. Yes.
How did you move that 0 to the neighbor to the right side?
The 0.
Oh, shift. There is a.
This
select the label.
this one.
No,
The
no,
label at the top.
on the text field above it, the
The label
0
text
is
label.
right aligned.
Ah,
That's in property.
it's in the properties button. So over here, you see where it says alignment. If you click on the text field, click over here so to make sure that this pane is showing, and you have the 1, 2, 3, 4th attribute. It's called the attribute inspector. And click on the. If you did my technique and just cut and paste or dragged and dropped the XIB in there, you saved yourself a lot of hassle with that. All right. So we got the number buttons. They're all connected. So now we're on step number 7. Same as in step number 6, wire the touchdown event for the plus, minus, all the operators essentially, and call it OP buttons, op buttons. So we're grouping the buttons together by what they are, and then inside of the buttons we're going to go, if it's this, if it's that, if it's this, if it's that, do something. So now we have all these operator things here. So touch up, I'm going to do touch up inside to see if it's going to do anything else, because we're going to do them the same as before. So touch down or touch up inside. Control drag it over here. This one's going to be called OP buttons. Let's see if that's right. OP buttons. Yep, that looks pretty good. I'm going to change this one to a UI button. Touch up inside. There we go. Now do the same with, so we're going to have the minus, plus, minus, divide, multiply. This is a decimal point. It's different. Don't wire. If you wire a decimal point, delete the wiring. Don't do the wiring. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Huh?
Touch up inside.
Yeah, I did the touch up inside because I wanted to see if it's going to look different. Oh, look at touch up inside. So it took the touch up inside. The first time I did on the number 1, I did the touch down, and it did the rest of them touch up inside. So I was kind of playing around with it to see if I put touch down or something. I picked the same one. Either way, it's the activity that you're going to do with your finger, but you're not going to be able to tell on the emulator anyway, so it doesn't really matter. What about the equals? Am I supposed to put the equals in there? Nope, equals is different. So just 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. Step number 8, let's wire the decimal point and call it decimal button. So the decimal point is going to be different, so is the equals. So I'm going to wire the touch up inside again. Don't ask me why. This is going to be called the decimal button. Decimal button. And the clear button, the CLR button, is going to have its own event. So let's type CLR button on the clear button. Where's the clear button? Oh, here it is right here. That's not touched anything yet. No. Good. So do the clear button. CLR button. Get this one a UI button. There we go. Connect. What did I leave out? The equals is coming up next, I think. Equals button, EQ button. If you call it the same name when you cut and paste the code, you don't have to worry about the naming. So, equals button, EQ button. So let's see. See, this is fun after a while. Touch up inside. EQ button. Actually, this is the fun stuff. There we go. And when you spend a couple hours trying to troubleshoot a problem, that's not fun. But when everything works, it's fun. Okay, so what am I missing here? I got the buttons. I believe I have it all wired. So now's the hard part. Not really hard to get the code written for us, but let's take a look here. Add a function prototype. A function prototype. So now for those people who are taking the Objective-C course, you'll know why you're taking Objective-C, because it's not all dragging and dropping. You have to actually create functions and stuff. So we're going to create a function prototype. Probably should have labeled that a method prototype, because it really is a method prototype. We're going to add one to the view controller, and this one's going to be called do equals, so we can just cut and paste this one here. Make sure you're putting it into the .h file. Where does it go? I like to put this stuff on the top. Excuse me. I like to put this stuff on the bottom, and I like to put the connections on the top. I like to put the properties on the top, because that's where the data is, and then the member functions that are associated with the GUI. And then underneath it, I'll put in here do equals, which is my own user-defined function. So we're creating a method that's not being controlled by the GUI. It's a method that we're going to put in here that says, we know when someone presses the equals, we're going to have to do this calculation. So we put a method prototype in here. Looks like the rest of them, it's a method for the method. So it's a minus sign, void is the return type, do equals, which means we're going to implement it in the viewcontroller.h file. Excuse me, viewcontroller.m file. We're also going to add some data to this property, to this project. So while you're still in the viewcontroller.h file, you're going to open up and you're going to need to add in 3 data members. And data members that we'll be using to keep track of the calculator data. So add 3 data member variables with the opening and closing brackets. So this is again from the Objective-C course. We're going to use the opening and closing brackets underneath interface. And for those people who are not in the Objective-C course, just know that in Objective-C, different than other programming languages, in the class definition, only the data goes inside of the opening and closing brackets, not the methods. So we have the data, and what do we have? We have NS string previous, NS string current, which is going to be what are probably going to be our button presses. And then integer operator, which is going to be a number that we're going to hold for the operator, 1, 2, or 3, if it's a plus, minus, or a multiplication or something. So it's just a way of creating a data abstraction for the buttons and for the information we're going to get. So we added those 3 data members. Now we're going to switch over to the viewcontroller.m file, and we're going to add the functionality to make the methods work for the calculator. So first we need to initialize our variables to starting values, and we can do this in the viewDidLoad method. Remember that? viewDidLoad. Initialize all 3 of the data members to 0. So in the viewDidLoad, I'm just going to cut and paste this here. You already have the super viewDidLoad in there, so you don't have to do that. So I'm going to switch over to viewcontroller.m. If I want to, I can actually get rid of the center screen here and just click on this screen over here and click on viewcontroller.m. You see what I did? I got rid of this view over here and then clicked it over here, and then I got it in the middle here. So am I in the view controller? No, I'm in the app delegate. Let me go into the viewcontroller.m file. And here's my, lo and behold, my view did load. So I'm going to say, this is sort of like the main function. I've discussed this in previous classes. Operator is going to be equal to 0. Current is going to be this empty string with a 0 in it. And previous is going to be this empty string with a number 0 in it. Remember, these are 2 NS strings and that one's an integer. So we initialize the data right there in the beginning. So let's go back to our cheat sheet here. Step number 14, getting right along here. We're going to fill in the method for the number buttons. Actually, this is really simple because we just have the 3 categories of methods. Well, the clear is going to be easy. That's a no-brainer. You can probably write that one on your own. But for the number buttons, what are we going to do? Capture the number that's being pressed, perhaps. Make it the current. So I'm going to cut and paste and put this in and then tell you what we're doing here. So this one goes into the num buttons. So here's the num buttons right here. And if you built it in the order, that's populating in the same order too, so it should be all lined up for you. And a string. We're creating a new string. What's the string going to do? Well, it's going to be equal to, and I just had to put a line return there, sender, current title, sender. It's coming from the UI event. Remember I talked about sender. It's coming from the title of the button. Well, the button title, cheat sheet here, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is how this is working actually. So, current title. So if you labeled your buttons ONETWOTH, you're going to have a problem with this calculator. You'll have to change this logic a little bit. So current title from sender is going to be into the string. So the current title is going to be is equal to string. So current title, current is a string that we created 2 strings, current and previous, is equal to string 0. Current is equal to string else. If current is going to be equal to current string by appending string to string. So I'm going to take the string. These are text labels are strings, by the way. We're going to work with strings. We're going to capture all this information. We're going to convert the strings to numbers, to data, perform any calculation on it, and then return it as a string. We saw this with Fahrenheit to Celsius last week. Same concept. So, but we're working with string titles. So this is how we're getting the current title on the button. So we can do this in a lot of different ways actually. In fact, we can use the same logic to say person pressed on the send button, person pressed on the OK button. We can actually get the title of the button and use that as a string. But this is one of those rare occasions in which it actually kind of makes, more automated sense to use the button label. And then the total is going to be equal to the set text to the current. So whatever we clicked on is going to essentially show up in the current. So we can run it right now, actually, and see what happens. When we click on the numbers, it should put into the label the current, the string called current should be added into the label. So let's see if it works. Bang, crash. 3, 2, 1, 4, 8, 7, 6, 5. Looking pretty good. This is one good way of actually getting some self-satisfaction out of it. Let's see it work before we break it. Alright, well I ran out of space because it went to, you should get behavior like that. If you don't, I'd stop now, fix the problem. Oh, stop now.
I get
Error.
An error at runtime saying loaded the view controller in but the view outlet wasn't set. Do you know what that means?
The view?
Is this the I'm sure it's something
Don't
like
succeed. Clean the project.
You probably have something. When you put the code, did you call it num buttons? Or like lowercase num?
let's check.
And when you put the code into the view did load, did you see any weird stuff in there? If this method wasn't matching, or if you have 2 methods in, there's some logical, there's nothing wrong with the syntax, there's some logical problem with your application, or it's Xcode not behaving. Yes? Do you have a question too?
I got incomplete implementation. Add implementation.
Oh yeah, that's normal because we haven't implemented the equals button.
Okay, cool.
You should get that actually. Yes?
I'm getting error on the total. Say,
Alright, let me pause this for a second. Take 2 minutes here. Alright, let's continue where we left off. So, common problem I was seeing was this data, so we need to make sure we don't put the opening of brackets, closing brackets for those people that missed that. So go ahead and try to make sure the numbers work. If the numbers work, you're in good shape. Fill in the code for the operator button next. So the operators, we're going to add the following code to the OP buttons in viewcontroller.m. I'm going to cut and paste to put it in and then tell you what it's looking at. So we have 4 different operators. We have the plus, the minus, the equal. Well, we're gonna get an error message when we put this in because we have not implemented the do equals yet. So just be cautious that you're gonna get a few unpleasant remarks from Xcode when you cut and paste this in. Make sure you get all the code all the way down to the bottom. There's several different, and there's probably better ways of designing this, but there's several different if-else statements. So cut this code, put it into the operator button of viewcontroller.m. So viewcontroller.m, OP button. Make some room here. This one's using the do equals, but we haven't put the do equals in yet. Just keep that in mind. And I've got an extra bracket. And what else do I've got going on in here? I've got a exclamation point, expected expression. Now let's see. I'm going to remove a couple of this.
You were supposed to be excited.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, I'm really excited now. It worked. Woohoo! I don't know if I was supposed to be excited or not.
The expression, the...
Oh. Anyway.
It's late.
It's been a long day. Actually, this is interesting. I have UI buttons inside of UI buttons. This is not right. Take this out of here. And I'm surprised. You know what? Xcode never gave me an error message. Xcode is running slow. All right, let me correct the code while I'm talking about it here. So we have in a string now. We're going to have a new string called temp. And temp is going to take the current string, substring from index, current length minus 1. It's going to take off the end. So we've got the current length. Because we do have strings with no characters at the end. If temp is equal to the dot, we're going to do this. Current is going to be equal to, well, this is going to be a typecast to an NS string. And the typecast is going to be current substring to index of the current string. And as I butcher this further, the total is going to be equal to setText colon current, which is what we're eventually going to do. Then down the bottom here we got the substring string, which is going to be equal to the current title. And then we're going to take a look at this and go, well, then if the operator is less than or equal to 1 and the operator is smaller than or equal to 4, then we're going to run self do equals. And I'm surprised that this is not throwing an error because of the do equals it was supposed to be. So, because do equals is not implemented yet. Current is this temporary variable that we declared up here that's going to keep track of what we currently entered in. So we currently entered in the equals, I believe. No, the operator button, which is going to keep track of the operators for us. And the operators for us are the plus, the minus, the divide, and the multiplication. So we're simply going to take and assign a, operator doesn't equal 5. Well, we're keeping track of these in terms of numbers. So we're going to assign it a number value, which is essentially going to give us is equal to a string of a minus, a plus, and then we're going to say if it's a plus, then have the operator equal to 1. If it's a minus, have the operator equal to 2. If it's a asterisk, have it equal to 3. If it's a 5, it means it's equal to equals. So we're taking and making a decimal number representation 1 through 5 of the particular operator that was entered in, because we don't want to use a string compare. It's going to be a little bit more difficult to do it that way. So instead we're just taking and assigning the operators to it to values of 1 through 5, or 0 through 5, I should say. And it's using a simple if-then kind of structure for that. Which is amazing that it actually pasted. I'm waiting for this huge error message to come out of this, but So in step number 18, it wants you to add do equals. I want to add the do equals right now though, because I guess I could add it later, but I'll put it at the bottom. Or you can also add the decimal. Let's add the decimal button next, which is going to be step 17. So basically what we're going to do is cut and paste and put the code inside of the missing buttons that we don't have any code for. So the decimal button is going to come next, which it does in our flow here. And decimal button is going to essentially mimic the behavior of a decimal point, and we're going to keep track of the range of the decimal, and in the case of if the range location is not found, we're going to exit out and it's just decimal something. Otherwise, we're going to take the number before it, the number after it, and treat it like a decimal. So current is going to be equal to the string append the decimal. So what current is really keeping track of is what we currently have in the queue for our calculations. And we're going to notice that we're going to have some problems with this logic, actually, because if you keep the current and it has a value in it, and you add more stuff to it, it doesn't increment it correctly. It actually makes a mistake with it, but we'll figure that out in a few minutes when we start testing this out. So the total is going to be equal then again to the text total. So after we do these various different operations, we're updating the total. So in this particular case, the total is the current, and the current is going to be the decimal precision that we're adding in here if it's in a range of the current string by appending a string. So we're appending the decimal to the string, and then we're copying the string back to current, and we're using the current essentially as our current input. Because decimal is really doing nothing more than just adding the point that we're going to use in a calculation when we eventually convert it all to numbers from the string. So we have the decimal put in there, and then we're going to add the do equals. So when the do equals method runs, it's going to run do equals instead of the equals button. So the do equals button is going to run do equals and then put the total out on the label. So I'm just going to kind of paste the whole method here, the do equals, because I don't have the method implemented. I have the prototype for it in the .h file. So I'm going to copy it over here, and I'm going to paste it underneath the decimal button. And then my clear, my equals is essentially going to be the last two items here. So if I've pasted that in, the do equals is really doing the decimal, the string to number conversion for us, plus the addition, the subtraction, and the multiplication, and everything else that we have going on in here. So we're looking at the operators at the operator, because we've identified the operators, and so we're going to by numbers, and then we're going to take number 1 equals the decimal number conversion of the decimal number with string from previous. So if you're going to do an addition, we're going to take the previous plus the operator, which is going to be equal to plus, which is, I think, is going to be, what's it going to be? It's not going to be this one. It's going to be the one down underneath it. Let me put my line returns in here so I can kind of see what's going on here. Each one of them is going to be representing a different arithmetic operation, plus, minus. So the cheat sheet way of doing this here is to take number 1 decimal number by adding number 2. So we're using built-in functions to take a number that we've converted from a string and run another method on it. This is why I call it the cheat sheet method. Decimal number by adding, decimal number by subtracting, decimal number by multiplying. So we're using the built-in Objective-C methods. We could do it a different way. We could do a simple addition. We could do a subtract. And that would be more like the Fahrenheit to Celsius example that I gave you. This is basically showing you these different decimal number by subtracting decimal number, all the different methods that are available. How are you going to know about these? You're going to find a reference book. Nobody knows about every single one of these different little methods that you can do on string operations or on decimal operations. These happen to be decimal, actually. The decimal numbers, decimal number, decimal by adding, subtracting. We're creating a new one by taking this parameter number 2, and in this particular case, adding it to number 1, and that's going to be equal to number 1. So depending upon the operator order that we're putting in, we're going to have certain, and does not take into consideration precedence. It just goes from left to right. So it's not, it's a flaw. It has flaws in it. Decimal, depending upon whether it is equal to a number, then we're going to perform one of these things to it. And then the total is going to be, again, that's going to be here, the text of set text to current, which is going to be the total, and then previous is going to be equal to the current copy, and then current is going to be equal to nothing, and then operator is going to be set to 5, which is going to be the equals. So, and it's essentially doing a makeshift kind of calculation using built-in methods to show you the power of the built-in methods, essentially. You can definitely design a better approach to this. This is not what I would call a good one. So, and you'll see in a few minutes why. It has some problems. See, number 19, it tells the tell the equals operator to run the equals button. Why don't we just put that in the equals button? Could have put it in the equals button. But what if we want to do equals somewhere else? So if we made a better calculator, then does the equals button have to do everything, or could it do other stuff first and then run the equals to do equals? So again, it's another design choice to move that out. So in the equals button here, this code should look a little familiar to you at this point. It's going to run self do equals. That's do equals. So you could cut and paste this and get rid of the do equals, but then I wouldn't be able to show you how to use another method that's not part of the UI. So plus, maybe we want to have different calculations. Maybe we want to run different equals and see which one we like better. Run the project and try out the plus and minus and the equals button. We can also, actually we didn't do the clear button here. I want you to do the clear button at the end, but I'm just going to do it right now. We have one button left we actually have to do is the clear button. So cut and paste and put the clear button in here. What's the clear button do? It's going to set everything to 0. It's going to be as if we ran the project fresh again. So current is going to be equal to 0, previous is going to be equal to 0, operator is going to be equal to 0, and the total is going to be equal to the current. Well, it's current, it's empty. So it's pretty much going to refresh us back to nothing. So now if we run it, let's see if the math actually works. Let's see if it actually compiles. Oh, build succeeded. You have this finished product, by the way, actually. But if you wanted to see it from an intermediate step, that's why I gave it to some people, but you actually have the finished if you download the finished product. But it doesn't allow you to kind of play with it half done. So let's see, 2 plus 3 equals 5. Is that right? Yeah. Here's the problem. Wait, what did I say? 5 plus 1 equals 6. Okay. Plus 7. Oh, plus. No, that's not going to make anything. 13. It's sophisticated. It's just keeping a buffer. It does have problems, though. You go like 6 plus 4. 64. 77. It eventually messes up. 39. 3 plus 4. 34. It gets messed up because nothing's getting cleared out. So you could have, well, this clear button here clears everything out and resets it back to normal. So you could design it so it kept track. Maybe have a memory button. Memory button would be a nice feature of this calculator, actually. Store the memory and then add the memory to another calculation so you can put sub-calculations. Also, order of precedence is not considered in here. So if I go 3 plus 4, where's my times? Times, oh, already did it for us. 3 plus 4 times 1 equals 7. Divided by 8 equals, oh, look at that, we got decimal precision. So it's not too bad. It is kind of primitive, though. It needs more functionality. So you can probably improve this in many different ways. But the learning objective here was to look at the concept of rigging all the buttons together into one category, all the operators into one category, and then using an if-then kind of scenario. You can study the code itself in more detail on your own, but And if you're in the Objective-C class, I highly recommend doing that because then you see what the code is actually doing. And just remember, you always, if you're going to treat it like a string, you can use string methods on it. And if you're going to convert it to a number, then you're going to have to convert it to a number if you're going to do number calculations on it. But the concept here is, especially with the operations buttons, we're using if, then. You could probably use a case switch on there if you wanted to. That's supported as well. There's many different ways of designing this. Yeah?
How, the current title, that's how did you get that?
Current title.
Yeah, if you go, yeah, sure. Same like that. If you go down.
Go
Before
down.
The operator less than greater than.
This is a typecast to a string, and it's the current
No,
substring.
one below that.
Oh.
Below that.
That's the label, the total.
No, the
Oh.
one below that. Yeah. We have sender current title. Right?
Oh, this is the sender is the button that sent the event. One of those buttons, this is the operation button, one of those buttons was pressed. And it's going to be the current title of the button.
So that, okay, that is it.
It's going to be equal to the operator. In this particular, it's the same method that we use to get the numbers, actually.
That is button title.
Button title, yeah. From sender. Sender is going to be whatever gave us the event.
Yeah.
Just like first responder was the sender of the done. Well, excuse me, that was the responder. Different concept. But the sender was the done event that occurred. So on these event-driven programming, you can take the, usually from a GUI, but you can actually send an event from another, like a notification or from a phone activity. You can trigger an event that will turn into the sender. Yes, I'm sorry.
You mentioned that there's a bug in decimal button. Could you just show us that?
There's a bug in the decimal button.
Yeah, you mentioned.
You know, as I was talking about that, I don't. This is kind of an old example, and I don't actually remember what the bug is. But let me just take a look here real quick. I can probably duplicate it. I want to say that it doesn't hold the equation. When it equals something that's a decimal, it doesn't hold it correctly. But I don't. You know. Let's see. That works. I could be mistaken. There may not be a bug in the decimal because that's. There could possibly. Decimal button right here.
That's just seeing if there's already a decimal point in the current. So
Yeah.
if there isn't, go ahead and pop it on the end.
The range dot location is not found.
So there wasn't a decimal there already. Go
Yeah.
ahead and add it on the end of the string, and then whatever your
I
current
think
is, move that into the. I think that looks good.
it looks good actually, and this is what I was originally thinking. I'm bringing it back up just to test it. If you put the decimal at the end of the button, whether it would accidentally pick it up as a not like go like this to. Yeah, it takes it away.
Yeah. So it's maybe a cosmetic thing.
Yeah, I don't think there's a bug in it. I may have, well, it probably got fixed. One iteration to another.
What if I typed the decimal button twice?
I don't believe it's going to recognize 2, but let's see what happens actually. It'd be interesting. This is not what I would call the most logical calculator. It might actually get messed up if you put in different operators, like put in 2 pluses. Let's see what happens. If I go 7 plus plus, it only lets, okay, so it is checking for once. Plus 4. It doesn't do negative numbers. It only does positive numbers. If I do plus plus plus, it's not going to work. Yeah, it's pretty smart. Not too bad. So, it's not showing precision, is it?
Like 4.4.4.
4.4.4. So you won't take the dot twice because it's already in there. It'll check for it and it'll end. So the function actually doesn't run unless it's if it doesn't. Oh, it's not going to take another dot either. So yeah, it's looking for the if it's looking for the presence of it and is checking to see how many spaces are past the current. And if there's anything past it, it's not going to take it. So you can't go 4.4.4.4. It won't take it, but you can go plus. Ooh, can't. Well, stopping it for. Oh, that's interesting. It's got some interesting behavior. So don't know exactly all of its problems, but that is a working calculator to a certain point. Now, obviously, you can have more features on it. No, so if you're thinking about stealing this code for the assignment, go for it, but add more features to it. Don't give me this code like this. Add some significant enhancements to it, not a picture in the background, because we know how to do that, right? So, actually, for those, well, for those people who are taking the ITU course, there's 2 assignments that they have to do. I think you missed it actually when you were the last time. And maybe you came in late. Are you taking this course for credit? If you're going to try and get credit for it, there's 2 assignments. If you're just taking it, like for the certificate program? If you're going to do it? You can always decide later as well. You don't have to decide now. So I dragged a UI image over here. And I'm gonna you actually have one, just because I'm on the topic now, you actually have 1 week left as well, because of the holiday. We have to have another week left. Yes, question, I saw a hand as I was
I
playing.
just wanted to be sure that I got the number of assignments right, Barbara. I think there are 2 assignments.
There are 2.
From the Objective-C class.
Let me refresh everybody's memory. Actually, because the IT students probably need to know this too. What are we talking about? People are like just hearing about these assignments. Where do these assignments come from?
Oh my God!
Oh my God! Somebody said assignments. All right. So if you're taking this, if you're an ITU student and you'd like to get credit for this course, you have to turn in a total. Because if you're an ITU student, registered as an ITU graduate student, you're taking 555, all 3 sections of this class, which has 2 assignments, 2 assignments, 2 assignments, or 6 assignments total. Last time when I was here, I went over what the assignments were. We can actually see them in here. For each one of them, if you're in the Objective-C as well as the iPhone iOS class, there's 2 for each one. What I've been doing is designing the coursework around the assignments so that you can complete the assignments. For the Objectives, let me just start with this one first. For the iOS application development course, the first 2 assignments are in here. The first one here was the, what was this one? Let's just refresh my memory here. Is the simple calculator program. As you notice, we just kind of built one. So what I said, don't turn that one in. Make your own calculator program. See? The second assignment for this particular class is the tic-tac-toe game, which I'm not going to build. That one actually will be a little bit more of a challenge to you. But because, you're trying to build up here. If you're not an ITU student, and you're a certificate program student, and you're trying to get the graduate certificate eventually, sometime before you apply for the certificate, you should send me those 2 assignments. You email them to me, and I keep track of them so that we can count, because then we have to count the coursework. Right now, if you're just taking it because you enjoy it and you don't want to have the stress, you're not an ITU student, you're from the outside, actually just you guys would fall in this category, you just want to take it for the fun of it, don't worry about any of this stuff. That's what I'm saying. You don't have to do the assignments. If you notice, next week, this is the 4th class meeting. After next week, we're done with the first 2 assignments. There's a few things on the tic-tac-toe that you're going to need, adding images on buttons and some stuff that I'm going to go over. And then the intermediate level starts, which is assignment number 3 and assignment number 4. So if you want to look forward to what's coming up, well, actually, assignment number 3 is a clock application. And assignment number 4 is an alteration to the clock calculation. But what we're going to do is take it past so the roadmap after next week is to take it past the single view, look at multiple views. So looking at tab view controllers, storyboard, which we haven't touched anything with yet. So going into the storyboard concept, going from one push modal window to another one, multiple views, loading and unloading multiple views, using different types of controllers, and then we go from that's like I call it the intermediate level. And then the advanced level of all of this is taking third-party toolkits, frameworks, Facebook framework, YouTube framework, LinkedIn framework, making instances of those classes, bringing them in with custom views and custom controls that control the frameworks, and then also custom objects. So working with HTML5, working with audio video clips, which we'll probably get into in the intermediate section actually, but that's more stuff. So there's a lot more to iOS development than what you've seen so far. Yes?
Is the deadline for the first 2 assignments next week then? Or
If you want to keep on track, let me, for IT people, let me bring up the EMS. It is, oops, no, that's not good. Let's see, EMS. For IT people, oh, well, that worked, I guess. What is LMS, EMS, LMS, IMOS? iPhone application development. You should call it iOS application development. They call it iPhone. Assignments. I believe I set the due date at the end. So at the end of this month, at the end of February, is when you want to have the first 2 done. Actually, regardless, because then we're moving on. And so then at that point, another month later for the other 2, and then another month later, which is approximately 5 weeks apart. So splitting out into 5, 5, 5. There's a little bit of a leeway on this first half because we have another President's Day coming up. Another holiday coming up. I don't know. So I'm hoping that's not going to be on the first day of what I'm calling the intermediate part. I'll have to check the calendar and figure out what's going on, and I'll let you know next week. But we have another Monday off, which totally throws our schedule off. So, all right, any other questions, comments, or concerns for this evening? We want more, or are we done for tonight? Okay, let's see what else we got. You're like, what? All right, so we did the buttons, we did the views. Actually, we're on good target right now. This is good. All right, I also take suggestions and recommendations at this point because after you've gotten a little feel, some people have area of interest that they're interested in, like they want to see more web stuff or they want to see more, I don't know, graphic. There's also stuff with OpenGL, as mentioned earlier, and a side topic with our paid sponsor, or not paid sponsor, who came in here to do her spiel. I can do anyway. So what I would recommend is if you send me an email message with suggested topics that you might want to add, because what ends up happening is around the middle of the intermediate part, next couple weeks, we get to a certain level where stuff's too easy for you, and then you want to move on to more stuff. Because right now you should be able to create Hello World, no problem. You probably can create a calculator, no problem. You probably could do an image view, no problem, hopefully. And you can probably navigate yourself into it, hopefully. So now what we start doing is honing in the skills a little bit, making a little bit more advanced, a little bit longer projects, essentially, with longer. Not hard. It's actually all the same stuff over again, but you're adding in new things. Like, you know, instead of connecting multiple buttons, you're creating a button dynamically, which we haven't seen yet. So I'm hoping the next project I'm going to bring in is going to do everything dynamically. So there's no drag and drop on the canvas. Why do you want to do that? Because then we can have multiple views, all sharing, multiple view controllers, all sharing the same window, all sharing the same view. And we don't have stuff sitting on the view. When you put stuff on the view, as we've seen, it's on the, like the calculator sitting on the view. If we want to use the view for something else in the same application, it's stuck. We have to create another view. So where do you want 5 views? We can do it all programmatically, add a button. That's one of the first projects we're going to see next week, actually, because we're going to get through that from the beginning part. So. Questions?
Next week you are going to run the app on the
If you, that's why I saved a little bit of time at the end. If you still haven't gotten your iOS device set up, I'm going to continue with the iOS device setup in a few minutes. But what is your question? If you have it set up, if you have your device set up, and you go into Xcode, my device actually should work now.
No, next week I'll bring.
No, I'm showing you right now. If you connect your device, I'm going to bring up the calculator that we just made actually. And if you went through the process we went through earlier, up here, see where it says Barbara Hecker's iPad?
Oh.
It will work now. And you press run, and then lo and behold, on Barbara Hecker's iPad, in a few minutes, here it goes, it's build successful. It should. Well, this is an iPhone app, by the way, so I'm running it on an iPad mini, so I'll make it bigger. There's the calculator. So now, if I shut this down, oh, I don't have an icon for it. It's blank. But now I can run it. Now I can disconnect it from the computer completely and run it, and I still have it on here. Only works on my device. Only works if I've set it up. So yours should work. So I'll come around and troubleshoot it. Otherwise, we're done with the lecture part for today. So I'm gonna stop this video actually.